Hello everyone, and during this lesson we are going to be building this circuit that we see on this schematic. This circuit is made up of a 9-volt battery, an SPST switch, two 330 ohm resistors, and two light emitting diodes, LEDs. When I close the switch of the circuit, the two LEDs will light up together both at the same time. Electricity will flow from the positive side of the battery to the two LEDs which are connected in parallel. Both are taking the same voltage from the battery. Now the first thing that we're going to connect in our circuit is the battery and the switch. This is our battery right here. The positive side of our battery is this long line over here. The short line represents the negative side of our battery. The long line, the positive side of our battery, is connected to one lead of our switch, of our SPST switch. So let's start with that. Now, from the envelope in front of you, please take out the toggle switch, a block connector, which is this, and the battery clip. Now, as seen on the schematic, we're going to first connect the battery clip to our switch. Now, the red wire of our battery clip represents the positive side of our battery, and we're going to connect it to one wire of our switch. Okay, and we're going to connect that by using a block connector. Now it's easy to make a connection with a block connector. You just insert the wire onto one side of the block connector and then turn the screw downwards on top of it, making a connection. Now I am going to loosen the screws a little bit to open the connection for my wire to fit in by using a screwdriver with a flat tip. So let's turn this anti-clockwise. Now you see the screw coming up, and now we have a gap for our wire to fit in. Okay, now that should be enough. Do you see that gap over there? Now let's insert the red wire, okay, inside our block connector. Now it's important to only insert the metal part of your wire. Do not insert the wire's insulation inside the block connector. Otherwise, you will not get a connection. Now let's turn the screw clockwise to press down on the wire. Make sure it's tightly connected in the block connector. Okay, that's a tight connection over there. Now, let's connect the switch's wire. Let's insert the metal part of our wire to the other side of the block connector. Then, hold the wire with a finger to keep it in place. Now, turn the screw clockwise using the screwdriver. And make sure that you'll have a tight connection. Okay, now let's continue to the next step. So we connected the positive side of our battery to our switch. Now let's move on the other side of our switch, which is connected to two 330 ohm resistors. Now let's take out another block connector and the two 330 ohm resistors. Now take the block connector and connect it to the other wire of your toggle switch. So first, loosen the screw of your block connector. You could immediately loosen both of them, create a gap, then insert the metal part, the copper part of your wire. Then hold the wire in place with your thumb or other finger, and then tighten up the screw on top of your wire to make a connection. Check if it's tightly connected there. Now let's start by connecting our two resistors on the other side of your block connector. So to connect these, I'm going to take the two leads of my two resistors and then twist them together, as I'm showing you here. Twist them tightly together. And like that. Now let's connect those connected resistors to the other side of your block connector. Okay, hold them in place with a finger and then tighten them up by turning the screws in a clockwise direction. Okay, so we connected our switch to the two resistors. Now it's time to connect the other leads of the resistors to the two LEDs that we see here. Each resistor has one LED connected to it. Now let's do that. So firstly, let's connect one block connector to each resistor. Again, loosen the screws in an anti-clockwise direction and then attach them to the leads of your resistor. Hold the wire in place with a finger as seen here, and then tighten the screw on top of the resistor's lead. Do the same on the other resistor. Now let's take out the two LEDs that we have inside our envelope. These are the two LEDs here, and they're going to be connected to the resistors. Now please be careful, as the LED has a polarity in it. The longer lead, the anode, is the positive, and the shorter lead, the cathode, is the negative. So electricity will pass from the positive to the negative. So let's take the longer lead, bend it 90 degrees as shown here. Now do the same on the other one. Take the longer lead and bend it 90 degrees like this. And those are the two wires that are going to be connected first to our block connectors. Let's loosen up the screws by turning the screws in anti-clockwise. And insert the bent lead into the other side of your block connector. Now let's tighten them up by turning the screw in the clockwise direction. Check whether if you have a tight connection, and then do the same on the other one. Let's connect the other LED to this block connector right here. Loosen up the screw and then insert the anode through the other side of your block connector. Tightly connect the screw downwards until it connects to the LED's lead. Okay, let's move on to the next step. So we've connected our LEDs to each resistor. Now, what we're going to do here is connect the two cathodes of your LEDs together to that single joint over there. Now let's do that. So electricity will pass from the positive to the switch to the resistors and the two LEDs. Now let's connect the two cathodes together. However, I'm going to indirectly connect them together by extending the cathodes with these two wires. So let's bend the cathodes of the LEDs 90 degrees as we did earlier with the anodes. Now, again, grab your block connectors and let's connect one side of the block connectors to the LEDs. Okay, now let's connect the black wires to the other side of your block connectors. Notice that here I'm using black wires to represent the cathodes, the negative side of your LEDs. Do the same on the other block connector. Hold the wire in place with your finger. Then turn the screwdriver clockwise. Okay, now it's time to connect those two black wires together to one single point. So I'm going to do this by taking both the metal parts of your wire and then again twisting them together, the same as we did with the resistors. Okay? By doing this, you're like forming one single wire. So let's loosen up the screw. and insert the 2 wires into one side of your block connector. Hold them in place with your finger and then turn the screw clockwise with your screwdriver. Make sure that you have a tight connection. Okay, now let's move on to the next step. So now we have connected the 2 cathodes of the LEDs together to one single joint. Now what we're going to do is connect those 2 cathodes to the negative side of your battery to form a complete circuit. Now let's do that. Let's grab the black wire of your battery clip, hold it in place with a finger or thumb, as I'm doing here, and then tighten the screw until it reaches the metal part of your wire. Make sure that you have a tight connection, and then you're basically finished with your circuit. All is left for you to do is to test it, to see, to make sure that everything is connected perfectly. Now to test it, I'm going to use a 9-volt battery. Okay, let's clip it to our battery clip as shown. Okay, now let's test our switch. And if the LEDs turn on, then everything is connected together accordingly. There you have it, the LEDs have lit up together. Let's switch on and off for a few times to make sure it still works. Okay, now we're done. Let's disconnect our battery, and now we could insert our circuit to our project.